I don't remember a lot from elementary school, but I do remember this. There was this kid, I'll call him Mitch, and he had a condition. I honestly don't know what it was. The good news is he pretty much grew out of it, but all through elementary school, he had to wear leg braces, and it was rough. Forrest Gump rough. He might have been in 4th grade. I think I was in 2nd, and I really didn't know him, but we all knew how Mitch walked. It was on his toes. His knees didn't really bend, and so he would swing his legs out wide. He was really good at it, but it looked different. And the braces, well, they made a lot of noise, and it was a lousy thing for a kid to have to deal with. He couldn't really play with us. I'm sure gym was a challenge, and it marked him as different in a time when there was a lot less sensitivity and acceptance of difference. Not that today is always better. Not by a long shot. Well, like I said, I don't remember much from elementary school, but I remember this. It was morning, and we were starting to gather at the door to go in to school. It was a few minutes before the bell was going to ring, and I heard it before I saw it. Voices. The sound of kids' voices. Laughing. Yelling. Jeering. And then around the corner of the building they came. Maybe 15, 20 of them. Bigger kids. And just ahead of them, trying to get away, was the object of their fun, their ridicule, their cruelty. It was Mitch. Sprinting on his toes, trying to generate the speed to get away. He looked terrified. And I remember feeling rage and the unquestioned notion that I had to do something. The kids were all bigger than me, and there were, as I said, a lot of them, but somehow it didn't matter. And I'm sure what I did shocked them. I met the group. I grabbed Mitch by the arm, which I know scared him because he didn't know if I was friend or foe. And I pulled him into a spot by the door. A spot where a corner of the brick building was formed, where one wall met another, and there was a 90-degree angle, kind of a niche. And I pulled Mitch into the safety of that crevice there, and I stood in front of him, and with all my strength, I put my arms against the walls and sealed him in there. I was sure I was going to get killed. And somehow, I was okay with that. They weren't getting through me. What I didn't expect was suddenly, my friend Tracy was in front of me, with his arms against the walls, protecting me, protecting Mitch. And just as suddenly, Pete was in front of him, his arms against the walls. And just like that, more 2nd graders ganging up in front of them, holding off the big kids. It only lasted a few moments, and then the patrol boys, they were all boys at that point, showed up, and they were the really big kids, and I think they kind of enjoyed breaking up the whole mess. It was a bit of a scandal. I had to go to the principal and explain myself. He listened, and I'm not sure what he thought, but regardless, that was that. What we see in the Bible today is something of the birth of a theme that will play out over and over again. Moses is in the field with his sheep, and he sees something that's really kind of a vision, a bush that burns, but that doesn't burn, and a voice. Take off your shoes, Moses. You are on holy ground. And for the first time in his life, a life that will include a lot of meetings and even more conversations, Moses meets the God of Abraham, the God who says, I am. Buckminster Fuller, whom I mentioned last week, said God is a verb, an action word, an active presence. Moses is about to experience that. There is a people, the people of Moses, God's people, and they are oppressed. Moses has to go back to Egypt and get them out. It's a theme that will be echoed in Israel's history and in the prophets and in the ministry of Jesus. Where there is oppression, where there are people being put down, that is where God is, and that is where we as God's people are called to be. We all know or remember a bit of this story. Moses doesn't want to do it. Why would he? I mean, in the stage of the world, Pharaoh, the Egyptians, they were the biggest kids on the block. Armies, chariots, wealth. They were terrifying. And to make it worse, Moses seems to know these people he's being sent to save pretty well. And like Mitch on that day I grabbed his arm, Moses isn't so sure that these people want saving or that they will believe in him. So often we fail to think a bit about these stories. Imagine Moses showing up at the Jewish camps. Who's that? What, that guy who grew up at Pharaoh's house? He's saying he talks to God? He's saying we have to leave? We live here! People were going to think he's crazy. And Moses knew it. And he doesn't want to do it. This could get a guy hurt or worse. But like it is with a lot of things that God wants us to do, Moses doesn't have any choice. Maybe there's someone at school who's being made fun of. Maybe there's someone at work who's getting abused. Maybe someone is suffering because they're gay or transgender. Maybe we can look at the poor. Maybe we can look at those who suffer for their religion or for the color of their skin. Maybe we can see oceans being dumped in, species going extinct, people suffering from flood and fire, a future looking bleak. Maybe we can see that someone needs to do something, say something. Maybe we can feel a call in our hearts. There was a big story in the news this week around a very famous singer and music producer who routinely sexually assaulted the women he worked with and was in relationships with. The story, which you can see in the papers and on the internet, is sad and telling. It took years and years to get this man convicted. And a lot of it was because it was inconvenient. People didn't want to listen to women complaining. People especially didn't want to listen to women of color complaining. People didn't want to believe a talented man who made really cool music could be sexually abusive. Society isn't made to change. It has its own rules in place that benefit those who have power, and it resists change, even when change is really, really needed. We who call the name of Christ have the really difficult task of speaking for those and with those who are oppressed, and for a planet that is oppressed. That's what God wants from us, even as, yes, it's hard to do. That's what God wants from us, whether we attack issues and problems from a conservative or liberal approach. That's what God wants even as it might mean giving up some of our own power, even as speaking and doing can be terrifying. There are really, really big kids out there who don't want the world to change. And no, none of us can do or should try to do all of it. But we each have our gifts, even if our gift is simply supporting those who speak and act for justice. There is something each of us can do, even if it's really hard to speak out. We're in good company. Moses didn't want to do it either. But we also need to remember, God helps us when we help God. Moses famously told God that he was not good at speaking, and so God gave him Aaron, who could talk a lot. God gave Moses what he needed, and I firmly believe God will do the same for us. Remember, we don't have to do it all, but maybe there is something. Listen to your heart. God is calling.